All right, welcome to another episode of Blueprint Digital, where we engage industry leaders to chop up market challenges, career journeys, and how technology is reshaping go-to-market strategy. Today, we are joined by Nathan Gwilliam, a serial entrepreneur who is the founder and CEO of PodUp, an all-in-one platform helping entrepreneurs build, grow, and monetize podcasts. He previously founded Adoption.com, one of the world's largest adoption platforms, and has helped scale digital media networks to hundreds of millions of users. Today, he's focused on what he believes is the next major shift in business, turning content into scalable, monetizable assets. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show today, Troy.
Nathan, you've built and scaled massive digital platforms. Now you're helping entrepreneurs turn content into real revenue engines. I want to dig into what's working today and where things are breaking down. At a high level, how do you think about podcasts as a revenue engine versus just content?
When I use the term podcasting, maybe I use it differently than how some people do, but in the old days, podcasting meant audio recordings. But today you look at most of the top podcasters, and they're much more than that. When I think of podcasting, I think of recording a video episode first. And then repurposing that video episode into maybe 10 or 12 different pieces of content, right? You have long video and some short video, you have a blog post, you have audio, you have different types of social posts, maybe newsletter. You put it in a lot of different formats, and then maybe you push it out to 20 or 25 different platforms, right? So it's still called podcasting, but it maybe is more accurately described as a content engine, right? And that audio is just one piece of it. And it's a big piece. You might syndicate out to 13 or 15 different audio platforms, but it's still only one piece of this content strategy. So when I compare content marketing to podcasting, to me, it's kind of the same. It's an engine that I think is a much more effective way to do content marketing and do it at scale. Many types of content, many different platforms that are done with a lot less effort and time than having to create them all individually.
What do you think separates the people who actually monetize from those who don't?
The biggest problem that I think in monetization is not the monetization, it's the production. So I think a lot of people go into the production and they try to do it with 20 to 30 different tools that they're duct taping together, and they're trying to do it themselves, and it takes way too much time and effort. And because they then consume all of the time that they have in the production, they don't have any time left to grow their show, and they don't have any time left to monetize their show. So honestly, the best secret to monetize is to spend a lot less time and effort on the production. There's this concept called pod fade, and most podcasters, like 80% of podcasters, quit by the 10th episode, something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a huge number like that. And what happens, the reason pod fade happens is the podcasters end up spending a lot more time and money, resources than they had expected. And because they're spending so much on this production, they're not doing any monetization. Time left for that. The monetization is a lot less than what they expected. And this gap between the increased resources they're having to put in and the decreased amount of revenue, pod fade. The answer to solve this is you've got to do your production. You got to find an all-in-one platform that requires a lot less cost, a lot less effort. You have all the tools you need in one place. You maybe even hire a production company that you record and they do everything else for you. But you've got to bring the effort way down, okay? And then you've got to launch monetization efforts. So there's dozens of different ways you can monetize. Through memberships, through courses, through lead generations, through having guests on your show that you sell, right? There's so many different ways, sponsorships. And then you've got to start rolling out these additional revenue streams. And most people just never even make it to this, right? They're so stuck over here in this minutia of publishing their show. If you free yourself up here, you're not putting the time in here, then dedicate that time instead to rolling out these monetization streams. I guess the other big problem is expectations too. Some people, they're frustrated that by their third episode, they're not making a ton of money. And if you're needing to make a ton of money by your third episode, don't podcast, because that's not going to happen. Podcasting is something where you've got to put the first year into it and find your audience and find your voice and build your reach. And I have a show called Why We Believe that I've been doing for over a year and a half now. And it just recently hit its stride. And you can just feel like the kinds of guests that we're getting on the show have just exponentially increased. The reach that we're able to get per episodes has gone up X, but it took a year and a half to find that, right? You're not going to find that in 3 episodes. So set your expectations correctly. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's something that if you do it right and you build a great audience and you monetize it well, it can be a good retirement strategy, a sustainable recurring retirement income.
Walk me through how pod-up clients are actually generating revenue today.
There's a lot of different ways. Let me talk you through some of the best ways. We had a client um, who actually quit with us because she wanted to do coaching. And she, within, I think it was 13 months of her doing her first episode, she had 100% filled all of the coaching spots that she wanted to fill in her schedule. She was 100% booked. And so she stopped podcasting. I think I was pretty short-sighted of her to stop, but podcasting helped her get to where she filled all of the coaching clients. So coaching is one. Another one that I think is the holy grail is membership sites. And that's where you sell some kind of gated content and community education services for a recurring subscription fee. I love that because you get a consistent recurring revenue stream. A lot of people think ads are a good way to monetize. I strongly disagree. It takes a lot of traffic for you to be able to make money off of ads. And a lot of people are in niches that are small, and it's hard to make enough money off of ads to make it work. A better way to do that, I call sponsored episodes. So that's where instead of just selling an ad you read, you sell the whole episode. And someone pays you a fee, and then you agree to interview them. And the episode can't just be an infomercial about them. It's got to be a situation where they're providing value to your audience. And then they're also telling people who they are and what they do, right? But people end up contacting them because they built trust through providing that value. So sponsored episodes is a great way. One of the best ways I've seen recently that is helping a lot of people is actually not from the audience, it's from the guests. And I actually recommend that everybody does this. So you identify who your ideal customer is that you want to make money from as a business. And then you build your show around interviewing those people. So let's say you're a speaker and you want to speak at events, right? Well, then you go find event planners that are putting together those events, and you build a show around those event planners where you're giving the value that those event planners want. And then you invite those event planners onto your show as your guests. And as they come on your show and you're promoting what they care about, they get to know you and like you and trust you, then many of those event planners will start doing business with you, right? And I've seen a lot of people that get much of their business from the guests that they invite on the show. So those are a few of the different ways. There's lots of other ways. You could do courses, you could do e-commerce, digital products, you could do live events, you could do virtual events. There's dozens of great revenue streams you could implement.
So I'm a founder or a CEO that's out there watching or listening, and I think, okay, I'm going to try this podcast model. What does a typical funnel look like from listener to customer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on who your audience is. If you're doing a high ticket sale, tell me, let's talk about your business, for example. So who is your ideal customer?
We work with SMBs that range from $3 million to $100 million. We're trying to future-proof their business, help them create top-line revenue, put AI-powered solutions in place to make them more productive for mundane tasks.
Okay. So do you do coaching? Do you do consulting? Do you do education? Do you do masterminds? What are you selling to them?
Yeah, we're more of a consultative approach, and we're talking to them, learning about their business, learning about their challenges, where they want to be versus where they are, what are the challenges, obstacles to get there, and then see if we have solutions that help resolve those obstacles and help them move forward.
Do you charge them like a high ticket monthly fee? How much do you charge usually per month?
Yeah, it really ranges based on the engagement. It can be as low as $2,500. It could be as high as 15,000. Just depends on the bundle of solutions that they're looking for.
Okay. So the way I would engage is I would build a spreadsheet of those SMBs between $3 million and $100 million that were your ideal customers. I wouldn't even be that broad. I would say this is the geographic region of the CEOs that I tend to convert the best. This is with me, I do really well with the college that I went to. There's state. It's not even the state I live in, but it's a state where we've hit some big home runs for clients. We have some big credibility from some case studies in this state. So I do really well in that state. I do really well with people from a certain that graduated from a certain college, Brigham Young University. I have this criteria of where I close the best. What we do is we've built a spreadsheet, and you go into like Apollo AI or Apollo IO, whatever that is, and you identify the people that best match that criteria. And then you take that spreadsheet and you find their LinkedIn accounts and you try to connect with them. And you find their emails. And then you start off by inviting, one of the ways you start off is you invite them as guests on your show. And and even if you have to do 2 or 3 days a week, do more shows than you normally would so you can get in front of more, that's fine. But you don't start off trying to sell. You start off giving value. You start off inviting them on the show. You start off talking to them and promoting what they care about and talking about what's going on in their life and their business and understanding them. And you build those relationships of trust. And honestly, I think that's the best way you could say if you just did that. And I don't know how many you need. It depends on what your close rate is and how many you need to close in a month. Maybe one a week is fine. Maybe you need to do 2 or 3 of those interviews a week. And if you did enough of those interviews, you probably are going to end up selling enough of those clients to get all that you need. In that kind of business with those kind of numbers you're talking about, you only need to sell a couple a month, and you're probably fine if you can keep them on recurring revenue contracts. And you probably can sell that amount by just from the guests on your show. So if I were you, that's probably the strategy I would focus on. The secondary strategy, if I still needed more than that, is I would take my episode, and so I would try to connect. I would find that database. Let's say I found 5,000 ideal customers that went to my university and were in that state and had the revenue. Then I would take those 5,000 customers and I would try to connect with all of them on LinkedIn. And I would try to then take content from my episodes or other content that I created, and I would push it out to them on LinkedIn. And I would make sure I was promoting my show, promoting me as a credible expert. And then the third thing that I would do is I would create a lead magnet. So who's my ideal customer? And then what is it my ideal customer wants the most? And then I would build something that I could give away for free to my ideal customer that there's just a no-brainer that they want. So going back to the analogy we gave of the event plan, let's say I was a speaker, so event planners was the person I was trying to target. So then my lead magnet for my event planners might be the ultimate checklist to running a successful summit or something like that, right? Maybe I would go interview. So this is another strategy. When you create your lead magnet, you can go interview 50 different event planners, 50 different people from your ideal target audience, and get them to share their advice and their feedback. You can even interview them to get them to share that. And then you take their ideas. So you can say, what's the best way to market a virtual summit? What's the best way to reduce churn at a virtual summit, right? You ask the most important questions, but you ask them of everybody. And you might jump on a video call with all of them and record it. And it's more time to build relationships with those people, more opportunities to build those relationships. And then you cut up their answers and you turn it into this lead magnet where you give it away, where you say, okay, 50 of the best industry experts in your industry have answered these 5 questions. Sign up for this lead magnet, give us your contact information, and you can have access to this video training. And then I would offer that for free. And then I would promote that out to my target audience of 5,000 via email, via LinkedIn, via, whatever way that I could get it out there to them. And then you get them on your list, because to get access to that lead magnet, they've got to give you their contact information and permission to market to them. And then you can start them on a drip marketing sequence. You can get them in your newsletter. You can start sending them all of the episodes from your show to start building that relationship of trust with that larger group of people.
Yeah, with the saturation of marketing and outreach, social channels, do you believe podcasting is the next major business platform?
I believe it is one of the major platforms. Yes, I believe podcasting is one of the tectonic shifts that's out there right now. I look at it as from a perspective of tectonic shifts. I think of the world of geology, and you have these plates that are constantly moving, and where those plates move against each other, create bad things like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, but they can also create good things like mountain formations and awesome ski resorts and water from snowfall and things like that. I look at it from what are the biggest tectonic shifts, and I think businesses should find the biggest tectonic shifts and then apply them to their industry. And that's usually what helps them leapfrog their competitors and drive the best growth. My question would be, is podcasting one of the big tectonic shifts today? Yes, if it is done as a content engine. Yes, if it is done in a way that minimizes your effort. Yes, if it's done in a way that grows your audience and gives you, you can implement the monetization streams, then yes, it's a huge tectonic shift today. There's some other massive tectonic shifts that I think are bigger than podcasting today that I think you should leverage as well, like AI, I believe is the biggest tectonic shift today. Credibility marketing is the second biggest tectonic shift today. Instead of the business marketing to the world and saying, I'm awesome, they need to use other credible voices like customer testimonial videos and reviews and influencers, that kind of thing. I think that's a much more effective way to do it. So should you do podcasting? Yes. And you should do it in conjunction with those other massive tectonic shifts.
You bring up tectonic shifts. What indicators are you leveraging to identify those shifts early?
Yeah, so I have a weird strategy that I use. I learned this strategy when I was sick with COVID during the COVID pandemic. It was at the end of a year, um, right at the end of a year, and everybody was writing their articles about the biggest trends in my industry, in my digital marketing space. I literally found 50 different sources that were all talking about what are the biggest trends for whatever 2021 in digital marketing. I actually built a spreadsheet and I took all of the things that those 50 people were saying and put those down in the spreadsheet and how many times the different tectonic shifts were mentioned. And I came from that easily. Here's the top 5 tectonic shifts or the top 12 tectonic shifts. Depends on how you did the cutoff. So that's one good strategy to do it is find what the influencers are talking about or the trends for the coming year.
When you think about the bottlenecks, you talked about 30 different platforms and duct taping things together. How do you see AI changing content creation and the economics?
Yeah. So in some ways, I think it's going to change it for bad. So as a CEO, I'll tell you, we have about 40 or 50 employees that are helping us. We have a production team where we produce podcasts for other people, right? Businesses come to us and and they say, okay, we want to record the episode. Can you guys just produce it for us, right? Well, you do everything else. You produce it, you market it, you monetize it, help us build our monetization streams, you book our guests, book us on other shows. So we have a team that does about 40 different services. And one of the biggest problems for me that's happened related to content creation with AI is I'll have a team member that will go to AI and they'll spend 2 minutes writing a prompt and generating a 40-page document. And then they'll email it to me without even reviewing it, without editing it, revising it, improving it. And then they'll say, hey, Nathan, I just generated your whatever new strategy. Here's your new digital marketing strategy for this client. And now I've got to go through, and maybe it was good. It got 80% of the way there, depending on a good prompt. But then I have to go through it, and I have to go spend 15 hours to get it to do the last 20%. So it actually created a ton more work for me. And I mean, the employee thinks it's great for them because it only took 2 minutes. But then I get to the end of my day, I've done 12 hours of meetings and I have 160 pages of documents that I'm supposed to go through and edit and revise for everybody else. I think the biggest thing that you need to realize is AI will not get you 100% of the way there. Even if you do a great prompt, it'll only get you 85% of the way there in a best case scenario. And you still need a wise person that can take it the rest of the way. And I had to draw a line with my team members and I had to say, you cannot spend 2 minutes and send me AI anymore, like period. If you ever do that again, like I do not have time in the day to deal with that. You've got to read through it. You've got to have your team members read through it. You've got to make sure it's great and amazing before you ever send it to me. You've got to get it 98% of the way there, not 85% of the way there. And it takes a lot more work from them. It may take them 5 hours to get it to 98%, but that's just the reality. You can't use AI in 2 minutes and then try to pass that off as amazing content because it's not going to be. where it needs to be. And people are going to see through it. And if you're going to use AI, which is a great tool, I use AI all the time, you've got to be willing to put the extra time into it to get it to the spot that it's amazing. I guess that's the difference. That's the differentiators. Some people are going to use AI and get it to 80, 85% of the way and then try to pass that off as great content. And they're probably going to fail in their AI strategy. And then some people are going to use AI as a tool together with a really smart person, and they're going to create something better than they could have ever created themselves. And those people are probably going to succeed in AI.
Yeah, it's a great point of view. When you think about your journey and scaling your businesses, what'd you get wrong before you got it right?
My goodness, so many different things. It depends on the audience who I'd speak to, how I would answer that question. One thing that I got wrong early on is I did not trust in myself enough. I did not believe in myself enough. I hired people to do things that I probably should have done myself. And I'm not saying a CEO should do everything themselves. It's still good to hire people, but if you're hiring them from a place that you're not confident in yourself and your abilities, sometimes you just got to go figure it out. Sometimes you just got to go do it. For example, with sales, right? I think a CEO probably doesn't have any business hiring a salesperson until he's proven he can sell it himself. And he's got to figure out the system. He's got to figure out the process. He's got to figure out the sales pitch. He's got to figure out the sales funnel and the flow. And he's got to prove that it can sell. Otherwise, you're stuck in a spot where you may have people that don't know your product and don't care about your product well enough, and they're trying to just sell it for cheaper and compete on price. And you've got to be in a spot where you figured it out, and then you're telling your salespeople how to sell it instead of letting it be driven by the salesperson that may not take your company the way you want to take it. So believe in yourself, figure it out. Don't abdicate that responsibility to someone too early. And then you hire people to help you scale it.
So we're going to let you sponsor this segment. So give our listeners, our audience, a 30-second elevator pitch for PodUp.
Yes, PodUp is the all-in-one podcasting platform. It now has 74 different tools all integrated into one platform, kind of like Shopify, but for podcasting, to help you create, grow, and monetize a venture around a podcast. So it's got 17 AI tools. I think it has 11 monetization tools built into it, all in one platform. You don't need to duct tape them all together. They're within one username and password. That's what PodUp is the software. Then we have Pod Allies, and that's for the business that says, okay, I know I need a podcast, but I can't do it all myself. I don't have time. They record their episode, and then we do 40 different done-for-you services for them, booking their guests, editing their videos, publishing, syndicating, rolling out their monetization streams, doing their paid ads, doing their SEO, helping them be successful, okay? We even guarantee how much monthly traffic they're going to get. We've gotten that good at it. And then the place where we're seeing the most growth that just has shocked us, that's really been driving the growth of our business, is the place we call My Platforms. So these are existing businesses that they want to build platforms for their ideal customers. They want to aggregate their ideal customers. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say you're in the plumbing business, right? You're a plumbing wholesale company. And so they said plumbers is my target audience. So we would go in and we would build platforms for plumbers, connection engines and podcasts and course education platforms and coaching platforms, so that the plumbers come and join those platforms and they give value. And they're generating revenue from those audiences. Anyways, that's My Platforms, and that's at myplatforms.com. So podup.com if you want to do it yourself, podallies.com if you want a podcast done for you, and myplatforms.com if you want us to build platforms for your ideal customers.
Fantastic. Nathan, it was great having you on Blueprint Digital. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for all those out there watching or listening. And until next time, I'm Troy Mann with Ascent Integration Partners. Remember, the pace of change in the market is getting faster every day. Adapting to change is not a requirement, but neither is survival. Rise above with Ascend. Take care.